Hello, welcome again. This is episode 8. One does not simply remove a value from a context. I'm Reed Evans, and you can find me on Twitter at Reed and Evans. So, one of the things that people often ask me when they start getting into concepts like maybe or either or promise or any of these other things is, okay, so I get that I want to use just and nothing and things like that, rather than having a null, because just and nothing and maybes in all of these contexts, they compose so I can continue chaining over them and do fun stuff. So they understand that if I have just of 3, then that's a maybe of 3. Just of 3, if I map that into an increment, we get a maybe of 4, and this makes sense. Nothing is obviously nothing, and nothing, if we map over the increment, is still nothing because we had nothing to increment. So that makes sense, but then people want to immediately get the value outside of that. And I understand why you would want to do that, but just of 3 does not equal 3. The 3 may or may not be there. And by implementing and going with these containers, like maybe and either and some of these other things, in this case maybe, we're saying that we're encoding into our types. And I get that this is JavaScript, so there's not really types, but we're saying that this is not 3. We can't guarantee a 3, so we need to deal with this thing. I will say that there are some things that you can do. This is using ramda-fantasy here. But so if we had just 3, we could do a get or else 1, and what that's basically doing is the 1 is providing the value that it should be in case it was an else. So this is kind of making sure that you're doing an if then else kind of thing. And so then in this case, if we had just 3 get or else 1, we would have 3. And if we had nothing get or else 1, then of course we would have 1 because we had nothing, so it took the other side. And if you were using something like Elm, then Elm has with default. So there's, there's multiple names for this. And you can do some different things there. Depending on what your language is, right? So we're pipe forward here rather than using essentially like an extension method or an instance method. But the thing is what often will happen is that people will do something, they'll call something that returns a maybe, and they'll immediately do this sort of thing. And the problem is that as soon as you do that, especially if you're not at the very edge boundary of your application, then you have these things littered throughout your code. So get or else 1, what does 1 mean? Well, I don't know, but it's nested deep within my code and I can't get back to it. Often what you want is this sort of thing is fine to do, but let's do this sort of thing like when you're displaying something to a user or you're returning something via some web service call, not actually within the guts of your code. So something like this is perfectly fine to do, and there are a couple other options you can do. You could do like a bimap or something like that to be able to deal with some stuff rather than having to basically extract the value from within here. Because if you have a maybe of some value, that value doesn't exist to you. You have a maybe of that kind of a type, but because of parametricity, which I probably bombed the pronunciation of, but we should not be thinking about the fact that this is some sort of value. Our value is now the entirety of this thing, which is just 3. So hopefully that'll help you. Hopefully you have less things like these magic values here with get or else 1 that are found within your app. And I think if you continue to compose your optional types or your types within contexts, continue to compose those together rather than always trying to get the value right back out of them, I think you're going to have a lot better time, you're going to have more success, and your code's going to compose together much nicer. So once again, this is number 8. One does not simply remove a value from a context. I've been Reed Evans. Thank you so much.